The weight of silence hangs thick in the courtroom, as Marcus, a skinny teenager whose too large suit only makes him look smaller, sits upright on the hard wooden bench. His eyes are locked on his older brother, Anthony, who is standing in front of the judge's bench. Every detail feels too sharp. Anthony's hands clenched white at his sides, the way the sunlight sneaks through the tall windows, the crack in the judge's desk that reminds Marcus of a scar. The words, "life in prison," fall from Judge Harrison's lips with icy finality, and for a long moment nobody moves. Judge Harrison almost seems to enjoy the misery in the room, his low laugh echoing out as if this is all just a joke to him. Around the jury box, everybody laughs along, every last face pale, polished, and uninterested in anything except following the judge's lead. In that moment, something cold settles into Marcus's gut. He was never naive, not after all he's seen growing up in the south side of Chicago, but the open contempt in that courtroom hits different. Marcus can taste the hurt and the anger. All he ever wanted was fairness, but now he understands just how stacked the deck is when you look. Like him, today is just one more day where the system crushes whoever it wants, and you don't even get to speak. Still, Marcus is not as powerless as everyone thinks. All those afternoons in the cramped neighborhood library, he's been reading. Not just rolling through stories or sports headlines, he's been devouring law books, learning about rights, cases, and loopholes. He's asked questions that make librarians pause, questions that make attorneys visiting the library raise their eyebrows. He devours pages about wrongful convictions, about activists who overturned impossible sentences, about the sly ways people have fought back and won. Each time Judge Harrison mocks his family, Marcus feels another promise settle inside him. He will not accept this verdict. He will not just watch as Anthony's life is thrown away. If nobody else cares about justice, Marcus will make sure someone does. He knows he is only one person, just a kid, really, but he knows what it feels like to be powerless, and he is done being afraid. Looking at Anthony, shackled and silent, Marcus swears the fight starts now with him, even if he is the only one. That night, Marcus can't escape the sound of Judge Harrison's laughter. It bounces around in his mind, refusing to fade, even as the sun slips away and the rest of the world grows quiet. The house that used to feel cramped and alive now seems way too empty. Every room carries the weight of Anthony's absence. The couch still has the dents from where he used to sit, and there's a pair of old sneakers by the back door that nobody has the heart to move. It feels like someone pressed pause on a life that was already hard enough. Marcus paces between the tiny kitchen and his room, hands wrapped around a mug of bitter day-old coffee that's gone almost cold. He's exhausted, but sleep is not even an option. Instead, his kitchen table turns into a battlefield, covered with papers he scavenged from the public defender's cluttered office. It took more guts than he realized to sneak those out, but desperate times call for desperate moves. There are police reports, court transcripts, and messy handwritten notes from an overworked attorney who never really looked Anthony in the eye. Marcus leans over every page, reading by the flickering light above the stove. He rubs the frustration from his face every few minutes, never sure if the burn on his skin is from tears or just how tired his eyes are. Still, anger pushes him forward. He starts noticing things that just don't add up. Statements from witnesses that contradict each other, timelines that don't make sense, and long sections of the trial where Anthony's own lawyer barely said a word. The more Marcus reads, the more obvious it seems. Nobody actually cared if his brother was innocent. To the judge, the jury, and even the public defender from the Cook County office, Anthony was just another number, just another case to push through the system. Determination sets in as Marcus sifts through each detail like his whole life depends on it. He circles names, jots down possible leads, and highlights mistakes that everyone else ignored. His brain, running on caffeine and pure will, slices through the noise and confusion. For the first time since the sentence, Marcus feels a tiny flicker of hope. The truth is still there, buried under all the lies and indifference. He believes he can claw it back, one careful step at a time, even if nobody else believes it's possible. Driven by a mix of fear and a stubborn sense of logic, Marcus moves from reading to action. He knows the clock is ticking. There are only 30 days after the sentencing to file an appeal. The urgency hangs over him like a storm cloud, pushing him past exhaustion into something fierce. Sitting at the tiny kitchen table with an old laptop he borrowed from his neighbor, he opens a new document and starts typing. His hands shake so badly at first that the words come out slow and jumbled. But he forces himself to keep going. He rereads court transcripts, piecing arguments together, and leans on every bit of legal phrasing he has picked up from the stacks of law books and late-night internet searches. Each word feels like it weighs a ton, but Marcus is careful. He drafts and deletes, rewrites and shuffles paragraphs, determined to make his point stick. He points out every inconsistency he found in the police reports, every timeline error, and every time Anthony's public defender did not object when he should have. As the night stretches on and the city outside begins to stir, Marcus's nerves are so raw that he finds himself gripping the laptop as if the device could steady both his body and his thoughts. By the time the sun starts to peek through the blinds, Marcus finally hits save with tired satisfaction. He barely gives himself time to drink a glass of water before heading out. At the public library down the street, which somehow always smells like old newspapers and dust, he sits quietly at a back table, waiting for a chance to use the ancient printer. The early morning crowd hardly notices him. When the machine hums to life and spits out page after page, each sheet landing in the tray feels like a small victory. Marcus gathers the fresh stack of paper, hands still trembling. Whether from nerves, exhaustion, or hope is impossible to say. Back at home, he carefully slides the paperwork into a faded brown envelope, the kind that already carries stains from years of being shuffled around. He shrugs on the suit that does not quite fit him, the same wrinkled suit from court, and straightens his tie in the hallway mirror. He takes a deep breath, hearts pounding, as he steps outside into the bright light. The neighbors watch from their porches, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, but Marcus keeps his eyes forward. He walks all the way to the courthouse downtown, the envelope tucked safely under his arm, determined to take the first real step in fighting for Anthony's freedom. The courthouse smells faintly of floor polish and old air as Marcus steps up to the counter, gripping his envelope with both hands. He tries to appear confident, but his heart is thudding in his chest. Behind the glass sits Miss Johnson, the clerk, with a pinched face and eyes that flick over him with instant annoyance. She barely glances at the address on the envelope before rolling her eyes. "You're not a lawyer, kid," she says, her voice sharp enough that the older man next in line turns to look. The words sting. The way she says kid is meant to make him feel small, like he does not belong there and never will. But Marcus squares his shoulders and doesn't budge. He has rehearsed this in his mind, knowing he would probably meet resistance. Looking Miss Johnson right in the eye, he calmly cites the exact section from the Illinois State Legal Code that allows anyone to file an appeal on behalf of a family member. Section 625, Article 4, he says, trying to keep his voice steady even as his hands tighten around the envelope. "I have every right to submit these papers." His words hang in the space between them, and for a second she just stares at him, like she's deciding whether to laugh or get angry. Before she can answer, Mr. Evans, another clerk, who always seems to be around the office laughing too loud, sidles over and picks up the envelope. Without even looking at Marcus, he smirks and tosses the whole thing across the counter, straight into the trash can by his feet. "There you go, sport," he says, as if this is some kind of game and Marcus's hope is just another piece of garbage. That gesture, careless and mocking, makes Marcus's stomach burn with anger. He feels the heat rising to his cheeks, sees the other people in the lobby watching from the corners of their eyes. For a split second, the urge to give up bubbles up, but Marcus bites it back. He refuses to let humiliation or fear stop him when so much is at stake. He takes a breath, grounds himself and speaks louder, carefully repeating his right to petition, quoting the law word for word. He refuses to leave the counter, locking eyes with both staff members, making it clear he is not backing down. In this moment, Marcus knows this fight is not only for Anthony. It is for everyone who ever had a door slammed in their face, but still knocked until someone answered. Word spreads fast about the appeal, almost like wildfire through the legal offices and down the courthouse hallways. Judge Harrison catches wind of it nearly before Marcus has even made it back to his block. It is not long before Marcus is handed a formal notice by a jittery courthouse runner, a young man whose nervous eyes linger on Marcus as if he cannot quite believe someone like him would be facing a judge from the other side of the courtroom. The printing on the letter is official, but Marcus only has eyes for the scheduled date and time, which are circled in bright ink. A rush of anxiety hits him as he thinks about standing in front of Judge Harrison again. This time he is not there for his brother, but for something he built himself. Pages and arguments and reasons, all balancing on the hope that someone will listen. Still, underlying that fear, a stubborn feeling of determination grows. Marcus barely has time to gather his notes, flipping through worn-out notebooks stuffed with highlighted paragraphs and ideas scribbled in the margins. He checks facts on his phone, pacing back and forth in the living room, running through points in his head over and over. The day of the hearing comes before he feels ready. He gets up before sunrise, runs through his arguments in front of the mirror a few times, and tries not to focus on the knots in his stomach. His family's old car rattles all the way downtown, each stoplight making his heart beat faster until he finally stands outside the courthouse, papers clutched tight and shoes shining just enough to give him confidence. Inside, the main courtroom is already packed. Marcus feels everyone's eyes as he moves through the crowd. Lawyers in crisp suits lean against the marble pillars. Journalists whisper and flip open notepads, and a few of his neighbors have come just to bear witness to what they hope is the start of something different. The tension is heavy, and everyone expects, honestly half hopes, to watch a teenager get crushed by the weight of a process meant to shut people like him out. Standing before the bench, Marcus sees Judge Harrison staring him down, robes like armor and gaze sharp as broken glass. Marcus feels trapped in place, boxed in by all that power and expectation. For a moment his voice shakes, carrying just a hint of the nerves running through him. But he steadies himself, holding tight to his notes, and reminds himself that the only way out is through. Judge Harrison's contempt is obvious. He leans back in his heavy chair, looking down at Marcus as if he's nothing more than a troublemaker wasting everyone's time. A legal argument from a teenager, he says, drawing out the words so each one lands like a stone. This is what our system comes to? His tone drips with mockery, and as he glances around at the courtroom, his eyes invite the crowd to join in the joke. Laughter grows, bouncing off the tall old walls that have heard decades of voices but still seem to amplify the sound of ridicule. Marcus feels every sharp giggle ripple through the rows behind him. Even the marble pillars seem to close in a little, making the space feel smaller. But Marcus refuses to let their laughter drown him out. His hands grip the edge of the podium a little tighter, steadying himself. Without raising his voice, he lays out every piece of evidence he worked so hard to gather. First, he points out glaring mistakes the police made during the investigation. Times when evidence was collected without signed warrants, names that changed from one report to the next, witnesses whose stories did not line up. As he moves from point to point, people in the courtroom shift, the laughter starting to fade just a bit. Then Marcus takes a breath and highlights the faults in the court-appointed lawyer's strategy. Key objections left unsaid, days where Anthony barely got a word in, and documents that were not entered into the record the way they should have been. Marcus methodically shows how these failures stacked the cards against his brother before the trial ever began. Finally, he brings up one detail he saved for last. "Your Honor," Marcus says, voice a little stronger now. The prosecution's closing argument went well past the legal time limit. He slides a highlighted section of the transcript across for the clerk to examine. That's not just a mistake. That is a violation of the law, no matter who is on the bench or how old, the one making the appeal. The law is supposed to be the final authority here. A hush falls. For a moment, even Judge Harrison's expression flickers. Marcus can feel he has struck at something bigger than just his own case. By choosing to put the law above even the judge's ego, he exposes a crack in the process, something the entire room cannot ignore, even if they want to. For a long second, it feels like the whole courtroom forgets to breathe. Marcus can see the shock on people's faces. Nobody expected him to go toe-to-toe with Judge Harrison and actually pin him with a legal fact the judge cannot brush aside. Harrison's face twists, his jaw tight, and the usual mask of smug authority slips away. For the first time, Marcus sees a flicker of something different in the man's eyes. Not respect exactly, but maybe the unwilling recognition that Marcus just out-argued the system, even if he is barely out of high school. The silence weighs on everyone. Some spectators glance at one another, their disbelief clear. No one had come ready for an upset, least of all the polished lawyers in the back row, who scribble notes with a little more urgency. Even the few reporters who showed up, ready to write another community kid out of his league story, now sit up straight. The air's heavy, with the sense that something important, something a little bit historic, just happened. Finally, Judge Harrison leans forward and clears his throat. When he speaks, his voice is low, and every word sounds chipped from stone. This court will grant a new trial. His eyes lock on Marcus, sharp and icy. But understand, this does not mean you have won. It means you have another chance, and know that I will be watching. The way he says it, there's no doubt. It is a warning masked as a ruling. The threat in his tone is so clear, Marcus almost flinches. He knows this is not over. There is no cheering, just the sudden scraping of benches as people start to rise, surprised by the turn things have taken. Marcus gathers his papers, fingers trembling with equal parts relief and worry. His knees threaten to buckle beneath him, but he holds it together, ducking his head as he steps away from the podium. In the buzz outside the courtroom, some folks avoid Marcus's eyes, not sure what to say, or maybe even afraid to be seen siding with him while Harrison is still watching. The doors close behind Marcus, but the tension lingers, heavy in his chest. He knows the fight will get harder from here. Judge Harrison's resentment fills the room even after he is gone. Marcus steps out into the hallway, knowing there is no easy victory waiting, just tougher odds, and the promise that the people in power will do anything to keep kids like him from coming back. Out on the street, Marcus feels the cool air hit his face as he steps away from the courthouse, his feet surprisingly unsteady on the cracked sidewalk. There is no celebration, but a quiet buzz hums through him, part relief, part worry. He glances back up at the grand old windows, knowing that inside, the powers that be are regrouping, already nursing their bruised pride. As he heads into the afternoon light, the first hint of real victory gives him a new kind of energy, enough to make the walk home feel less like defeat and more like a beginning. Neighbors peek out from behind curtains or linger on stoops as Marcus passes, Some nod quietly, careful not to draw too much attention. Marcus catches the look in their eyes. It is a mix of caution and respect. Folks around here know what it means to stand up to someone as untouchable as Judge Harrison, and nobody wants to find themselves next in line for trouble. He's not sure how much safer he is for having tried, but at least it feels good to have done something right, even if it only lasts for a little while. Even that small sense of pride is shadowed by the weight pressing on his chest. He cannot shake the feeling of being watched. Every streetlight feels a little brighter than usual. Every car, slowing as it passes, catches his attention. He half expects someone to step out and tell him he has gone too far. Sure enough, as Marcus glances up at the courthouse once more before turning the corner, he catches a glimpse of Judge Harrison in his office window on the upper floor. The judge's silhouette moves across the glass, and Marcus sees him pick up his phone, his head bent close, as if sharing something urgent. Maybe it is just his imagination, but Marcus cannot help thinking that whatever the judge is saying has little to do with the official business of the court. The message is clear, even from a distance. Marcus's win, small as it is, has not gone unnoticed. The sense of threat that hangs in the air is real, and Marcus feels it in his bones. He heads home a little faster, notes of warning replacing the relief that had briefly filled him. He can see dark clouds gathering in his mind, knowing hard days are coming. But as he climbs his front steps, Marcus also knows he is not the same kid who walked into the courthouse that morning. He's bracing himself for the next round, ready for whatever storm Judge Harrison is about to send his way. Marcus barely has time to catch his breath as he nears his block, tiredness settling into his bones. The front of his house is only a few doors away when he hears the sharp screech of tires on the rough concrete behind him. A Chicago police cruiser pulls up, lights flickering but no siren, cutting him off so fast he nearly stumbles onto someone's lawn. Before he can step back, both front doors swing open and two officers step out. Officer Davis, tall and stocky with a jaw tight as stone, and Officer Carter, his partner, eyes scanning Marcus with a mix of boredom and something colder. Hands up, Officer Davis snaps before Marcus can even speak. Right now. His voice is loud enough to make a couple neighbors peek out their windows, but no one comes closer. Marcus does what he's told, arms in the air as Officer Carter circles him, almost circling like a wolf. You match the description, Carter says, not bothering to explain what that means. Marcus wants to laugh, to protest, but he knows where he is and what happens to people who talk back in this part of town. He tries to keep his voice calm. I'm just walking home, he says. I haven't done anything. But they are not listening. Davis is already patting him down, rougher than necessary, pushing Marcus's shoulder so he almost loses his balance. You got any ID? Carter asks, but before Marcus can reach into his pocket, they have him spun around. The cold snap of handcuffs bites into his wrists. His words do not mean much. They never do when facing badges in the shadows of his own street. The search is harsh. Carter empties his backpack onto the curb, scattering Marcus's notes and paperwork for the case. A familiar folder lands open, papers flapping in the breeze. Then, almost too easily, Carter pulls out a plastic bag filled with white powder, something Marcus has never seen before. What have we got here, he says, loud so everyone nearby can hear. Marcus's stomach drops. He knows it is a setup, a trick straight out of the playbook used to silence people who push too hard, who refuse to back down. Marcus struggles to steady himself. He wants to shout the truth, but knows the officers are not interested in explanations. Their sneers make it clear they are there with a message. Step out of line, and this is what happens. The ride to the precinct feels like it goes on forever, even though Marcus knows it is only a few miles. Squeezed into the back seat with his wrists digging into the handcuffs, he tries to keep his breathing steady. The city outside blurs past, but inside the car, time drags with each ugly word and jab. Officer Davis turns around every so often, spitting out insults and threats, each one hitting just as hard as the rough shove Marcus got into the car. Officer Carter, not even bothering to hide his smirk, elbows Marcus's shoulder for no reason except to make his point. After a while, the talking fades, replaced by quick, mean punches, hard enough for Marcus to feel every bruise they want him to remember. They are not trying to get information. They are sending a message for Judge Harrison and whoever else cares. This is what happens when you dare to speak up. When they finally push Marcus through the glass doors of the Chicago Police Department, he feels every ache in his ribs and arms. The bright lights in the booking room sting his eyes. No one there seems surprised to see a kid in cuffs, still shaking, covered in dust and sweat. They snap his picture, take his fingerprints, and toss him into a cold, cramped room that smells like bleach and tired anger. Marcus sits in the metal chair, rubbing his wrists where the cuffs left raw marks. It is freezing. The metal table is bolted to the ground, and the only sound is the steady drip of a leaky faucet. When the officers come in, they try to belittle him, mocking the legal arguments he used in court, sneering that nobody on the South Side needs to know the law because it never helps them anyway. They laugh off his attempts to quote the Illinois Penal Code, turning his defiance into a joke. But then the door swings open, and a new energy fills the room. Mrs. Evelyn Jones steps in, all confidence and purpose. She is a well-known activist, someone Marcus has seen at community meetings and protests. She does not flinch or look away from the cops. Instead, she holds out the printed bond receipt, her face set and sure. "Release him," she says, locking eyes with Davis before turning to Marcus. "He is coming home with me." The officers go quiet, not wanting a scene with someone who knows the news and can call in witnesses. For the first time that night, Marcus feels hope stir, a reminder that even when the system does its worst, someone out there is willing to fight back. Marcus climbs into Mrs. Evelyn Jones's battered sedan, the door creaking as he slides in and shuts it gently behind him. There is a chill in the late-night air, and the old car smells faintly of lavender and coffee. Evelyn starts the engine, glancing in the rearview mirror as if making sure no police cars are following. They do not speak much during the drive. The city lights flash by in silence, both of them wrapped in thoughts too big for words. At last, they pull up to Evelyn's place, a small bungalow tucked behind a tall wooden fence on the south side. She ushers Marcus inside, leading him to her kitchen, where the lights are softer and the space feels safe. Evelyn sets down her purse, goes to the medicine cabinet, and brings out ice packs and ointment. She sits Marcus at the table and gently cleans the cuts on his knuckles, pressing ice to the fresh bruises on his arms. "You did something tonight most folks would never dare," Evelyn says quietly, her voice a mix of pride and worry. "But you need to know what that means." She holds his gaze as she talks. "You stood up to Judge Harrison, someone who runs things his own way in this city. That makes you a target for people who are used to never being questioned." The warning runs deep. They do not play fair, Marcus. They do not have limits. A tightness settles in Marcus's chest, a fear that squeezes his words away. He feels the weight of it, the history of his neighborhood, the long list of names whispered in fear when the wrong people get angry. He tries to swallow, but the lump in his throat stays stuck. Still, when Evelyn looks away for a second, Marcus clenches his hands, the bruises throbbing under the bandages. "I cannot back down now," he says, surprising even himself with how steady his voice sounds. "Anthony is still locked up for something he never did. If I quit now, nothing changes. That is what they want." Evelyn sighs, worry deepening the lines on her face. "I wish you would be careful," she mutters, smoothing his hair like his mother used to. But for Marcus, every ache in his body is layered with something stronger: determination, urgency, a need to fight back against a world that tries to keep him and his brother in their place. No matter the danger, the pull to stand up is even greater. Morning light seeps through the curtains, drawing thin gold lines across Marcus's bruised face as he wakes up in Evelyn's spare bedroom. He blinks, takes a steady breath, and listens to the city waking up outside her house. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wail, an everyday part of life on the south side. But today, those sounds nag at his nerves, a reminder that trouble is always close. Evelyn's house, though warm and quiet, cannot keep out everything that marks a kid like him. He tries to stretch, but the stiffness in his shoulders reminds him of everything that happened last night. Still, he forces himself up, washing the sleep from his eyes at the tiny bathroom sink. In the kitchen, he finds Evelyn already up, humming to herself as she pours a cup of coffee. She offers him a mug, and they exchange a few quiet words before Marcus pulls out his folder and starts. Working at the kitchen table, he lays out his notes, still neat despite yesterday's chaos, and goes over them again and again, worried he might have missed something. What keeps him going is the single piece of hope he clings to, the slip of paper with the time-stamped security footage that proves Anthony, his brother, was blocks away at a corner store when the crime happened. The store owner, Mr. Jackson, gave Marcus a signed statement, along with a copy of the video from his old black-and-white security system, showing Anthony laughing with friends while the trouble was going down on the next street. It is not much, but it is honest and clear. Marcus spends most of the morning drafting a formal motion to submit to the court. He rereads every word, making sure it is solid. He prints 3 copies, tucks them into a fresh folder, and straightens his shoulders as Evelyn insists on giving him a few dollars for bus fare and a sandwich. Not long after, Marcus steps into the echoing hallway of the courthouse. He feels everyone's eyes, some familiar and some new, all sizing him up. He walks up to the clerk's desk, sliding the motion forward with careful hands, but this time he senses it. An extra layer of resistance. The clerk barely looks at him. The security guard by the door seems to linger, and Marcus catches whispers at the edges. It is as if every part of the system is waiting to trip him up, ready to push him back down before he can even finish what he came to do. Still, he stands a little taller, determined to see this through. At the clerk's counter, Marcus is greeted by a new face, Kevin Brown, a young guy in his mid-20s with perfectly pressed khakis and a slight smirk, as if the old-timers in The Office had already trained him in the art of making people feel small. Marcus sets his folder on the counter and explains what he is filing, making sure to keep his words steady and polite. He watches Kevin, trying to read anything reassuring in the clerk's eyes, but instead all he finds is that same cold detachment he has faced every time he has come to this courthouse. Kevin's fingers drum the counter as he scans the paperwork, a little too slow, a little too obvious. When Marcus hands over the envelope with the video and statement inside, Kevin peels it open just enough to peek, lips curling in a sort of mocking half-smile. "Another last-minute hero, huh?" Kevin mutters, loud enough for the people in the waiting area to catch it and turn. He slides the envelope under the glass partition with exaggerated care, as if he is doing Marcus a tremendous favor. The motion seems respectful on the surface, but the look in Kevin's eyes says otherwise. There is no welcome here, no hint that anyone will move quickly. Marcus schooled himself not to react. He has been warned by Evelyn and by the events of the night before that sometimes the hardest battle is just getting through doors people do not want you to open. Marcus stands tall, reminding himself that everything he has done is by the book. The evidence is clean. The motion is filed within the legal deadline, and he has followed every step the law requires. He tells himself he cannot give these people any reason to turn him away. But as he turns to leave, he catches Kevin's eyes on him, that smirk still lingering. He knows that the real struggle is not over the papers on the counter. It is about whether the people holding the keys are honest or corrupt. With every step he takes away from the counter, Marcus wonders whether evidence can really speak for itself, or if it will get misplaced, buried by a system more interested in protecting its own. The mood in the courthouse is heavy. Marcus feels the eyes, the sneers, and the energy pushing back at him. Still, he refuses to waver. The future is uncertain, but he clings to the hope that not everyone in power will choose to betray what is right. The next morning starts with a knock at the bedroom door. Marcus hears Evelyn's quiet voice break through his uneasy sleep. She hesitates before stepping in, and by the look on her face, Marcus can tell something is wrong. He sits up, heart creeping up into his throat. Evelyn doesn't bother with small talk. "Marcus, I got a call from the courthouse. The clerk says your evidence never made it to the judge. They claim the protocol went missing." Marcus blinks in disbelief. He remembers every detail, the folder, the careful handoff, Kevin's mocking smile at the window. At first, he thinks maybe there is a mistake, some mix-up on the judge's desk. Evelyn hands him the phone, and Marcus dials the clerk's office. Himself. The phone rings, and when someone finally answers, it is Kevin. Marcus had hoped for decency, but Kevin's voice is light, almost laughing. "Sorry, man. Paperwork gets lost all the time around here. Guess you should have double-checked. Maybe next time you'll do it right." Stunned, Marcus listens as Kevin continues with his thinly veiled sarcasm. "Rules are rules, you know. If it didn't get logged, it didn't happen. Have a nice day." The call clicks off, leaving Marcus to stare at the wall. Rage and heartbreak push up through his chest, the kind that chokes you when you know the playing field is not just uneven, it is upside down. All his planning, hours at the kitchen table, the proof that could free his brother, gone as if it never existed. Evelyn sits by his side, a hand on his shoulder, but he can see the hurt in her eyes too. "That is how they work," she says, quietly, not hiding her bitterness. "They want you to feel powerless so you stop fighting." Marcus slams his fist into his palm. He cannot believe that even after following every rule, every step, they could just laugh and erase his efforts. But deep down, something new builds up inside him. It is not just frustration anymore. It is something like stubbornness, or maybe hope refusing to die. Marcus stands up, shoulders set. If they want a fight, they are going to get one, he says. He knows it means risking more, maybe even standing alone in front of Judge Harrison again. But he cannot stop now. If the system wants to keep him out, he will keep pushing in, any way he has to, because giving up is just not an option. Marcus, still nursing a pulsing anger and a sense of injustice, puts on his cleanest shirt and heads. Back to the courthouse with Evelyn close behind. The building seems even larger and colder today, as if it knows what happened yesterday and is daring him to make more trouble. This time the halls buzz even more than before. News has spread about his attempt to free his brother, and the story of missing evidence has grabbed some attention. As Marcus walks toward the courtroom, he can see groups of people waiting. Some are neighbors from the south side, others look like reporters with notepads in hand, eager for something to happen. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harrison sits high. On his bench, face unreadable. Officer Davis is nearby, arms folded, staring Marcus down with the same cold look from before. Marcus's stomach flips, but he forces himself to take steady steps up to the front. He asks to be heard, and as he stands under the fluorescent lights, he looks Judge Harrison square in the eye. "My evidence was lost on purpose," he says. His voice trembles but does not break. "Someone in this courthouse made it disappear. That evidence would clear my brother. Everyone knows it." A ripple moves through the room. People shuffle. In their seats, Judge Harrison looks annoyed and calls Marcus a liar in front of everyone, his voice echoing off the marble walls. Without missing a beat, the judge hands down a hefty fine and threatens to have Marcus arrested right then and there for contempt of court. The deputy moves a step closer, as if waiting for a chance to haul Marcus away again. It feels like the whole system has closed in on him, ready to crush any scraps of hope or dignity he has left. Then, from the second row behind the press bench, a voice calls out, "I'll pay his fine." A woman stands, tall and confident, holding a stack of bills. It's Rachel Watson, one of Chicago's tougher reporters, known for digging into stories no one else will touch. She walks right up to the clerk's table, lays out the cash and says, "Let this kid speak. We all deserve to hear him. Let the cameras roll." Suddenly, every eye is on Marcus. But this time it feels different. Flashes pop and recorders flicker as Rachel stands by his side. Her bold gesture gives the moment a new energy, and Marcus, bolstered by her support, takes a shaky breath. For the first time since this began, he feels that maybe, just maybe, someone in this city wants justice as much as he does. After the hearing, the courthouse steps turn into a scene of buzzing activity. Reporters swarm, microphones out, but Rachel Watson finds Marcus first. She is direct, not wasting a second of the whirlwind moment. Holding her camera steady, she tells him, "I got the whole thing, Judge Harrison, that fine. Your words about the missing evidence. People need to see this." Marcus nods, still catching his breath. His heart is racing, but he manages to thank her before she slips away into the growing crowd of journalists and supporters. Within an hour, her footage is clipped, cut, and out on every social media channel you can think of. By sunset, what happened in the courtroom isn't just local news anymore. The video spreads with lightning speed, each share piling up as people across Chicago see the evidence disappear right before their eyes and hear Marcus call out the judge and the crooked system. On Twitter and Instagram, people are posting with the hashtag #Justice for Anthony, and soon it is trending everywhere. Anthony's name, once whispered in worry, is now loud on people's lips as a symbol for every kid who ever got steamrolled by the city's justice system. By nightfall, crowds gather outside the courthouse and spill into the streets around City Hall. Homemade signs and chanting fill the thick summer air. No justice, no peace, and free Anthony. Neighborhoods across the South Side are alive in a way Marcus has never seen, every block pulsing with the energy of folks who refuse to stay quiet. People bring water and snacks to those marching. Elders clap from porches, and tired parents after work join rows of students and activists. Helicopters circle overhead as the protests stretch long into the night, the noise echoing down every street and bouncing off the brick buildings. Marcus, meanwhile, sits by the window at Evelyn's house, face pressed to the old painted glass. As he watches the news coverage flicker on her TV, between sirens and shouts, he sees faces. Kids from school, local business owners, even a few city politicians, standing together, unwilling to let another injustice slip by in silence. And while pride and hope start to grow inside him, there is a tension he cannot shake. Deep down, Marcus knows when systems are threatened this way, they usually fight back. As night stretches on and the city rumbles with protest, he wonders what those in power might be planning in the shadows while the world is busy shouting in the streets. By the next afternoon, the streets around Chicago's City Hall are packed. The protest, which started as a handful of neighbors and friends, has turned into a surge of people pressing against police barricades, waving hand-painted signs overhead. Many read, "Let Anthony go," or "The system must change," while others call out Judge Harrison by name, demanding accountability. You can hear chants blocks away, waves of voices rising together and filling the city's heart with determination. Marcus, still at Evelyn's house, keeps trying to take it all in. His phone buzzes every other minute. First, it was Rachel telling him her video has gone viral. Now it is reporters wanting interviews, high school friends cheering him on, even strangers sending messages of support. Earlier that morning, he had watched himself on the national news, standing under those courthouse lights, speaking truth to power, even as the judge shut him down. The thrill of it all is impossible to ignore, a warmth of pride pushing away the constant knot of worry he has carried for so long. But underneath that pride is a kind of fear Marcus has never known before. Being in the spotlight means the things he said inside the court cannot be pushed aside, not by anyone. Every mistake, every detail that does not add up, he knows it, will be picked apart, debated, maybe even twisted by people wanting to protect the old way things worked. People congratulate him for being brave, but Marcus cannot shake the feeling that being noticed comes with its own risks. Deep down, he remembers all the stories from around the city about how people who stand up don't always stay safe. Evelyn notices it too. While the protest noise grows outside, even seeping in through the windows, she watches Marcus pace the living room. Her voice is low, full of concern. "They have not shown their move yet," she says, staring at the television, where Judge Harrison's tight-lipped photo sits above a breaking news banner. Silence from someone like him is never innocent, Marcus. He is waiting for you to slip. He is waiting for the storm to settle before he does something you don't see coming. That feeling creeps into every corner of the house. Even with the celebration outside, both Marcus and Evelyn sense a deeper tension, as if the very walls know that power does not give up easily, and justice is never given. It has to be forced, out inch by inch in public and in the shadows. As darkness falls over Chicago that night, the energy outside City Hall feels thick with both excitement and nervousness. People have been holding candles, singing and sharing stories since sunset. Everything has a sense of uneasy hope, a fragile peace hanging over the crowd. Marcus watches with Evelyn from her window for a while, straining to catch every syllable of the speeches drifting in from the street until he cannot keep still anymore. He leaves the safety of the apartment for the first time all day, drawn by the heartbeat of the protest, pulsing through every alley. Streetlights bounce off the faces of neighbors, teachers, and old friends. Then, out of nowhere, something changes. There is a sudden roar, engines gunning as a line of dark vans and pickup trucks rockets toward the crowd. Doors swing open and men in masks pour out, wielding clubs and boards. In an instant, the singing and chanting dissolve into screams. People scatter in every direction, trying to duck behind benches and cars or push through the mass of bodies toward safety. These attackers are swift, organized, and shockingly brutal. It is clear to Marcus right away that this is no random outburst. He glances around and catches a fleeting glimpse of a familiar badge. Judge Harrison's supporters, stoked by his silence and power, have sent in muscle to try to crush the protest in one night. Marcus's chest pounds as he sprints down the sidewalk, shoes slipping on pavement slick from spilled drinks and dropped candles. He sees a girl from his homeroom crumple to the ground, bleeding from her forehead. An older man throws himself in front of a broken store window, yelling for everyone to duck under the metal security gate. All the while, the cops stand across the boulevard, huddled in little knots near their cruisers, making no move to help. It is as if they have decided the city can rip itself apart tonight, so long as they are not the ones to blame. Through the chaos, Marcus barely manages to find shelter by ducking behind a dumpster. His hands shake and his breath comes quick and harsh. For the first time, he feels what it really means to start a fight against power and what happens when those in charge decide to answer with violence. The clean lines between right and wrong blur when blood runs in the gutter. The cost of the struggle is suddenly, bracingly real, and Marcus knows the battle for justice will never be won easily or safely. Marcus barely has time to think as he darts around the back of a battered alley, his legs aching and his mind racing with fear. Shouts echo behind him, heavy boots pounding on the asphalt. Someone yells his name, a twisted, cruel version that makes it clear they are not looking to help. He stumbles, glancing back just long enough to see three men break away from the chaos, faces covered, moving with one purpose. They are coming straight for him, and from the look in their eyes, Marcus knows they are after more than just a warning. He angles away, desperate, but the city feels small and endless at the same time. Every turn brings another closed gate or brick wall, as if the whole place is working against him. He can hear their angry taunts, the quick crunch of their footsteps getting closer. One grabs the back of his hoodie, yanking hard. Marcus twists, flailing, but they are stronger, too strong. Fists crash into his ribs and stomach. He tries to scream, but it comes out a thin croak lost under the noise of the night. The world blurs with every blow, the sharp taste of blood in his mouth, each hit full of hate that spills out for everyone who has tried to change things in this city. Somehow, Marcus's hand brushes against a loose metal grate beside the curb. The attackers keep swinging, but he pushes with every scrap of energy left, slipping his fingers under the grate and wrenching it free. The metal clang is drowned out by the violence, and with a final desperate kick, Marcus throws himself down through the opening. The last blow misses his head by an inch. He lands hard in the darkness. Below, lungs burning, body battered. He lies there for a moment, chest heaving. Above him, shadows flicker, and angry voices curse, but nobody is following. Maybe none are bold or foolish enough to crawl into the city's underbelly at night. Slowly, Marcus drags himself through the tunnels, scraping his knees and elbows on the damp concrete. He moves in silence, pushing aside trash and struggling through darkness deeper than anything he has known. Eventually, a weak draught of air tells him he is near another exit. He pries open a second grate, claws his way out onto the side street, and collapses there for a minute, sucking in cool air. His body is shaking, bruised and bloody, but his heart still pounds, hard, stubborn, alive. That rhythm tells him he is not done. He is still here, and every beat is one more act of resistance. When Marcus finally staggers back to Evelyn's apartment, his body is practically running on autopilot. Each step hurts, but somehow he manages to make it up the cracked stairway and knock on her front door. Evelyn opens it in a rush, her eyes wide with worry. She helps him inside right away, half carrying his weight down the hallway. Marcus tries to talk, but what comes out of his mouth is just a croak. He sinks onto the old couch, clutching his battered ribs and shaking from pain and shock. Evelyn kneels next to him, dabbing at the cuts on his head and handing him a glass of water. "Slow down, you are safe now," she whispers, her hands trembling. But rest is impossible. Evelyn's phone keeps lighting up on the table with message after message. Marcus watches as her face drops. She picks up the remote and flips on the local news, her hand almost unsteady. The reporter is standing in front of what is left of Marcus's family's tiny house on the south side. Firefighters move through the charred wreck. The reporter says that the fire started just before dawn and that everything was lost. There is a brief shot of Marcus's mother wrapped in a blanket and weeping quietly, someone's arm around her shoulders. Marcus's stomach drops. He cannot process it. He cannot even speak. Evelyn's living room is silent except for the low hum of the television. Neither of them says a word. The camera shifts to an image of Judge Harrison sitting behind his desk, stone-faced as ever. The news anchor repeats that unidentified arsonists are suspected but offers no names, and the story moves on. Deep down, Marcus knows who ordered this. The attack is bigger than him now. It is meant to destroy whatever hope he has, whatever family he has left. Nobody is safe, not even the ones who had nothing to do with the protests in the first place. Suddenly, all that anger rising in Marcus pours out as tears. He cries for his mother, for everything lost, for friends who might never feel safe again. But even as his fists clench and he wipes his swollen eyes, something sharp and determined pushes through the sadness. The system wants him beaten, wants him to quit. But he looks up at Evelyn, jaw set, and whispers, more to himself than anyone, "We are not finished. Not yet."